Alrighty, it says we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another Moonshire Monday. I'm going to give it a couple minutes for the stream to start up, but I am ready and eager to start yet another session. Have not missed a single Moonshire Monday yet. Every Monday at 10 a.m. CT, I will be here. So thank you all for the support. Thank you for being here. And I'm really eager to get into it. See a few folks in chat already. Saw Ruben earlier, Mythical Rock was here earlier before the stream started. I see Gecko and Wolf. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate that. I have a few things that I wanted to get through today, and I'll talk through those in just a moment as people start to come in. I'm seeing Mythical Rock, Steve-O, Allfather. Hello, welcome in. So I wrote a few things that I wanted to at least consider looking at today. First, over the course of today's stream, I'm a little quiet. It doesn't look like I'm too quiet, but if I'm wrong, someone can let me know. The thing I want to definitely consider today is topics, because all of my streams are a little unorganized. Like, I have vague ideas of what I want to do, but I think it would be a lot better if I go into each stream with a specific topic in mind. So I can have like a section, like even if it's just like a 10 or 15 minute section that's dedicated to, say, shaders, or a section dedicated to the physics engine or animation, or it could be pixel art, but it could be like a very specific topic. So then going into the stream, I can have all this stuff ready, and that way, like in the moment, it'll be a lot more organized and a lot more streamlined. It's not going to be quite as disorganized as it has been, because I think I have a bad habit of kind of just doing what feels good, and it doesn't really. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but I think it'd be a lot better if I have some topics in mind going into each stream. And also that could help make the title of the stream more relevant, because I always name it something like doing pixel art or doing level design, and that's very vague, and it doesn't always describe accurately what I'm working on. So having different topics in mind. So over the course of today's stream, if anyone has any thoughts on specific things that they'd like to have a small section on during any particular stream, I think that would be really, really cool. But besides that, the thing that I'll probably start working on is shadows for props. So in this version of the game, hopefully you're not seeing the choppiness like I'm seeing on OBS, but this is the original codebase, and I'm working on kind of migrating all of this content over to a new codebase. Crazy AI have returned. Sharp, No Name, Krish, Alex, Adele Adam, George W. Cush. I'm getting around to animating all my characters now in my own game. Rip's going to take me forever. It is a very long process. And in fact, that's kind of what I want to start on, since this is going to be a pixel art focused stream. In my rewritten version, excuse me, of Moonshire, I have the player drawn in a different way than I did originally. And I kind of showed a sneak peek of how this works, but I actually have it fully implemented now. So I'm going to go ahead and show exactly how that works. So give me one moment while I pull this up. By the way, anyone out there, I use Windows for all these streams, and whenever I go to show my files, this file, it's so small. The text is very small, and all the images are small too. I really wish I could make the preview image of this logo bigger in the file explorer, but I actually do have to actually go into it and zoom in really far, and oh, I see, it's a pixel art arrow, and you can kind of tell that from the preview, but it's very, very small. Last stream before Windows 10 discontinues. Ooh, rough. I didn't know about that. I guess I heard that they were discontinuing it. I wasn't sure when that was happening. You go through the progress of the week at the beginning of every stream. I could do that, and that's kind of, if I have something worth showing, because that's the tricky part with this, is that's how I've kind of set up all my videos so far, is I would just do a progress stream. But really, a lot of the progress that I make is not something I can really show off. It's just it's code reworks, and it's gotten a lot harder for me to make videos on the iterations because it's very samey. But before I go any further into that, I wanted to show off the how the animation and constructing the player works, because it is a little bit of a complex process. So whenever you're working with in pixel art, it's pretty common to use sprite sheets. So this is what the sprite sheet for the player currently looks like. And the way that it functionally works in the game, because you can see that like the player's sword crosses through the head a little bit onto the hand, and it has like this layered effect to it. And additionally, since I want to be able to recolor individual pieces of the player, I separated all of the different pieces. So like I have the head, and then this is what the head looks like. Okay, so we have the head position of each frame. And even further, I split it up by color, so then I can recolor each layer individually. So this leads to being able to have a lot more control over what colors are being used for the player without needing to make new sprite sheets. So this is how this is all set up. Is I have this color map, and I have different color definitions for all of the different like coloration. So when you color something to be red, the main color is this shade of red. The light variant looks like this, and then the dark variant looks like this. So every color has a main, a light, and a shadow. Oh, you got an ad? Oh, hi, Benny ADM. Welcome in. Hornet vibes. So I see what you mean. So the idea is every color, when you just say, I want to color this thing red, it grabs these three colors and applies them to the appropriate places. So again, if I pull up this head, the main color is the red, but then you can see that there's the lighter shade of red up top, and then a darker shade of red towards its chin. And that's kind of the whole idea here is... Oh man, my monitor setup is so messy. Oh my gosh. So then when I want to change colors, it's just going to grab the different combination and apply it to that layer. And in the end, when I pull up the rewritten version, it's going to look really, really similar. But it's the same code, or it's a different code base, but it looks really, really similar. One thing I did was make it so if I give myself a bunch of dyes, I can say change to the yellow one, and now I'm yellow. And what it does in this case is it really is just grabbing these color definitions and applying them to these individual layered portions of each individual layer. And this is different how it was before. Before, what I did was I had a red sprite sheet for the player, I had an orange sprite sheet, a yellow sprite sheet, so I had to have a different sprite sheet for every different color combination. So this new setup is more code focused, where adding a new dye color, a new any kind of color, I just need to put this into this list of color mappings, and I'll be able to use it as part of anything. But then that leads into some trickiness where I need to make sure that this definition in the code is perfect, otherwise it's going to look a little bit weird. And what I mean by that is, like this yellow one looks really good, but I remember that this purple one, that looks good too. I was kind of thinking it looked a little bit too saturated, a little bit too purple, but it kind of looks okay. That definitely looks good. Yellow looks good. Green might be a bit too much. I don't have any idea for my player sprite for my RPG pixel game. Can you help me out? My advice is just to start with start with something very, very simple. In fact, just make your main character a square. Just make it a very simple square, and then make your game around that. And go from there. And then at some point, you might have some idea that'll hit you, where it's like, oh, now I have an idea, and then you can implement it. Don't try to force anything, but also don't get hung up on small details that prevents you from even starting. Because if you spend a bunch of time, say you spend several weeks working on your main character's design, and then you start working on the code portion, and then it turns out that things aren't going the direction you wanted to, all that time you spent working on the player, it's not... my advice always is to get started with development as quickly as you can. Just jump right into it, even if it's something simple. So that's what I suggest. I think that this green coloration can be toned down a little bit, where it's a little bit less saturated because it feels like too much. I really shouldn't eyeball it. In fact, I'm gonna try eyeballing it real quick, but I don't think it's gonna work out. I think it's unlikely to work out. Oh, this is way too saturated. Okay, I'll say with my absolute fantastic golden egg. Nice, sure, that sounds good. Okay, let's see if this color looks any different. Yeah, I actually think that does look better. And I know that it's very nitpicky what I just did. All I did was I changed it from a very bright or saturation. Let me explain what saturation even means. So these colors here, the more to the right is more saturation. You can see that the green up top, it gets like more green the more to the right it goes. And the more to the left it goes, the more gray the color gets. Like, it's still a little bit green over here, but it's very gray. So this is called saturation, how much of the color is actually present. And I noticed that in the original green coloration, it was pretty saturated. It was very green, and it didn't feel like it quite mixed. Hopefully that's what I had first. So you just make colors different, so you gotta test both. You're absolutely right. At the same time, though, if the colors look good pre-shader, and the shader is applied to everything, I think it's likely that it's going to look good. So if it looks good with no shader, which, like, currently there's no shader running in this, like, ugly, janky version of the game. But as long as the colors look good here in the unshaded version, as long as the shader that's applied is applied to everything, then I think the result is still going to look right. And character scripts tutorials, yeah. Check out my Love 2D Getting Started playlist. I have a bunch of tutorials for first getting started with Love 2D in general, but also there's some videos in there for making a player character and animating it and having a camera even. So I think that it would be pretty feasible to get to this point that I'm showing right here. Oh, another thing I didn't mention, the player is blinking now. Callback to a really, really old version of the game where the player could blink. And now blinking has returned. What a joyous moment. Isn't it nice when things can blink? Oh, that's cool. It's such a minor detail, but the reason why I never had it re-included is because the eyes have to be drawn separately unless you want to have a sprite sheet that just only changes the eyes. So when I had blinking in the game originally, the way I had it set up was I literally had a sprite sheet. Let's see. I would have like a blinking version. I would have this sprite right here, and then it duplicated to the left of it or to the right of it with a blinking version. It was such a waste. So this new version, this new setup, the eyes are drawn completely separately. In fact, I think that I can even show this. The eyes are just these tiny images. Close. So close is just 2 dots. Open is that. And then pane is that. So this is just very, very small different configurations for the eyes. And it programmatically decides which sprite to display over the player's face, depending on the situation. So most of the time the eyes are open, but occasionally it switches for a moment to the closed sprite. And the other challenge with this is look at how the eyes are bobbing up and down with the player's movement. the eyes have to match that bobbing. The eyes can't stay motionless while the player bobs up and down. This is why it's a challenging process to do this, because the eyes need to be completely matched on a pixel by pixel level to its baseline sprite. And it literally does that in the code. If I go over to player draw, let's see. I have this map here where I go through every frame of every frame of the player. And this lean y equals 2, lean y equals 1, this tells the code how far down the player is bobbing. So this sprite here is lean y 0, this one is lean y 1 because he's crouching down a slight bit, and then these are lean y 2 because they're crouched down completely. So every frame has a like y coordinate system, and that's what tells us where the eyes are going to be placed. It also uses this lean y property to decide where the weapon will be placed, because this version also has the weapons. And if I'm holding a weapon, you can see the weapon bobs up and down with the player's walk motion. The spear cannot stay just motionless in place as the player walks. It has to do that bob up and down that matches the player's movement exactly. If it didn't have that, it would look really weird. So that's exactly how that works, and I'm a big fan of it. It's really, really clean. It's a lot of work to get that set up, and it's very challenging because you have to be very meticulous. And the other hard part is if I wanted to change these sprites around, like let's say I wanted to take the sprite sheet wherever it went. If I wanted to take this sprite sheet and say I wanted to swap the positions of this sprite and this sprite, it would require me changing a lot of things because the sprite sheet is chopped up into a whole bunch of these different folders. It's rough. Ooh, Xenogears music. Yeah, nice. I love Xenogears. At least I like a lot of the music, at least. Xenogears is cool, but the second half is really rushed. It didn't really land the landing, the ending, if you ask me. Could you add Penguin to your game right now? Penguin, that's an interesting idea. Possibly, but probably not right now at the moment. What's your advice for making fan games? Oh, that's a cool question. My advice for making fan games is go ahead and do it, but at the same time, know that when you make a fan game, you always run the risk of the original owner of that property not really wanting you to make that game. And it's the same with, like, my example is the Zelda fan games, because I used to make Zelda fan games. And I would make those from scratch in Game Maker. And that was a really, really good experience making those fan games because it taught me a lot about making games. And it was fun because I liked Zelda games. Making my own Zelda game was fun. It was a great experience. But the big caveat is that I never posted it. I never posted the game for anyone to download and play. I posted the videos of myself playing it, but I've never shared that game for anyone else to play. I also made a Pokemon fan game, and that one is even more impressive than the Zelda one. It's bigger and it's actually a pretty good game, but again, I never released that one publicly because the thing with... I just know that copyright laws are very, very tricky. What's a caveat? It's just like a thing to consider. It's, even though making fan games is very fun, the caveat is you can't legally share it. Can we see the gameplay of Pokemon? Sure, I would love to share it at some point. I don't think I have any footage right now, and the game doesn't run on this computer. It only runs on old versions of Windows. So I'll make a video of it at some point. I'd love to. So my advice for making fan games is go into it not with the assumption that you'll be able to release it, because these days I don't think that people even release fan games anymore. Sonic fan games are allowed. That's the thing, is that different companies are going to have different policies, and at any point their policy could change to be no fan games. And the reason why they have a no fan games allowed policy is because they have an IP that they need to protect. If you don't protect your IP, it lessens your grip on it. So if the fact that they allow that the Sonic team allows Sonic fan games is very cool for the community, but it also lessens Sega's I don't know what you call it. It's all about proving your ownership, and when you don't enforce your ownership, it makes the times when you do enforce your ownership less. I'm not explaining this well at all. I'm very sorry for like rambling about that because I didn't really explain it well. And the truth is I'm not really well versed in this, but all I do know is that fan games often get taken down by the original owners of the IP. Take a look at like AM2R. It's really, really good. The Metroid 2 remake. It's a really, really good remake, and the moment it released, it got taken down. And I'm not saying it's good or bad that happened, but it is a shame that the developer put so much time and effort into something so amazing and beautiful, and it got taken down. What a sad story. I know, it is a really sad story, because they made a really, really amazing game, and there's... yeah, I know, it's just rough. It's rough. The main company should have the better quality, but when the fan games come out better, people tend to get salty. I agree with that. And I think AM2R is a good example of that, is that there wasn't any Metroid 2 remake at the time, and that version of it was really, really good. And then, coincidentally, Nintendo had their Metroid 2 remake coming out, and I don't know if that's the reason why they decided to strike the AM2R, but maybe that was a possibility. Money makes people go evil with power upon their fans. It's easy for you to say that, but if you made something special, like let's say like with Moonshire, my game Moonshire, would I be okay if someone out there made a Moonshire fan game? Because like I'm a small indie. I don't know if that seems fair to take my IP and make a fan game and then release it and have other people play it, and they're essentially taking my ideas and I wasn't talking about the fan games. Oh, well, okay, sure, yeah. I mean, money is the root of all evil. It's also the root of all good. Money kind of just exaggerates all aspects of it. I was talking about the actual company themselves, by the way. Yeah, I understand. But a company is just a bigger version of an indie company. Like, I am a company. I have a Chalicade LLC. That's a company. It's an LLC. It's a legitimate company. So I'm just a different level of it. I'm a much, much, much smaller version compared to something like Nintendo. Nintendo is like a 5,000x version of what I'm at. No, it was way more than that. How many people work in Nintendo? How many people work in Nintendo? It's like 100,000, maybe more than that. How many people work at Nintendo worldwide? What? 8,000? That doesn't sound right. How is it only 8,000? I'm gonna fact check that. Maybe this is an AI like hallucination. That just doesn't sound right. I don't know how I can fact check that. How many Nintendo employees are there worldwide? This AI is also saying 8,000. I'm just really surprised that it's only 8,000. AI lies? It doesn't lie, it just hallucinates. And, you know, also, Google is not completely accurate. I understand that it's fair to say that AI has misinformation, and it definitely does. But you will get misinformation no matter how you search for stuff. So if you use an AI to look up stuff, or if you use Google to look up stuff, or if you use a website to look up stuff, you have to fact check it regardless. So AI is just a way of scouring lots of different sources at once. Because if we look at that, I already closed the Copilot, but at the bottom, it actually said which sites it pulled from. So as long as you are validating the information, that like same with what just happened there, even though it turned out that the AI was correct, I didn't just blindly accept it. AI doesn't know which sources are reliable or not. That is true, but do humans know which sources are reliable or not? Because I don't think humans know either. I would rather be deceived by my fellow human. That's fair to say. Kind of, you know, it's easy for humans to say that they can tell when something's fake, but I don't think it's true. I think that humans and tech all have their own fallacies. I think that it's kind of hard to know. Like Wikipedia, we know is somewhat safe. Holy moly, dude! Anyone can change those sites. I don't know if I'd go with that. And also, Wikipedia lists the sources at the bottom of every particular site. So you'd have to go through all of those sources to validate if the sources themselves are accurate, because if the sources are not accurate, then the stuff that's listed on Wikipedia is not going to be accurate. So I would not say that Wikipedia is particularly reliable. I'd say that it's more reliable than some sources, but is Wikipedia more reliable than an AI? I'm not quite sure. It might be. At least the nice part about Wikipedia is that it can be validated by lots of people, and if someone notices an issue, they can correct it. But the same is kind of to be said about any sort of. I'm gonna stop talking about this. This is getting a little bit much. But I think that we can all agree that it is a little bit tricky to know what's true and what's not, and it's really important to just be very cautious with what you look up online and be very cautious with what you believe. I think that we're all approaching this with a sense of caution and a sense of skepticism. As long as you do that, you're in good shape, because it's hard to really know. It's hard to really know. But this seems pretty reliable. This is nintendo.co.jp, and it actually lists 8,000 global employees. Now, the reason I'm surprised by that, okay, I guess it doesn't actually include these, I don't think. Or maybe it does. I think it does. I think it does include these. I think it does. So, I'm just surprised it's only 8,000, because I worked at Microsoft, and Microsoft was over 100,000. So I'll go ahead and look that up. How many employees work for Microsoft worldwide? I don't know what site to click on to figure this out. I'm just gonna go with the AI again. Like, literally, I can't trust any of these sites either. These are all just like... What about Microsoft? See, this is why I'm so shocked about Nintendo. Microsoft has 228,000. How is that possible? 228,000? Microsoft does a lot more stuff than Nintendo. I mean, that's very, very true. In fact, I bet the games section, in fact, how many of those employees are from the video game sector? This might be closer to 8K. 22K. Oh, that's including like Bethesda and Blizzard. Also, what the heck? 2025, over 15,000 employees got laid off? Oh, with several thousand from the gaming division. Okay. Mythical Rock, how can I detect collision data? Collider touches something from collision class, for example, name, XY. So for me personally, I use a physics engine for anything like that, because collision detection is kind of complex. Like, just deciding or detecting if something collides with something else is not too hard. Like, detecting if a circle is colliding with another circle, reasonable. But detecting if like a really complex polygon is colliding with a rectangle that's whatever size, that's complex. And then the other thing is making things stop. So if you want to have a rectangle collide with another rectangle and stop, that's a little bit complex, where you would want to probably use a physics engine. So the easy answer is use a physics engine. I use a physics engine for MOONSHIRE. So for any complex collision stuff, I'm using a physics engine for that. I recommend using normal love 2D physics library. Yeah, I recommend that. At this point, I recommend that as well. Winfield is good, but it probably will be outdated soon. And in my rewritten version of MOONSHIRE, I actually... So, you know what? It's kind of hypocritical for me to say don't use Winfield, but the truth is this physics.lua file that I wrote here is basically just Winfield. Winfield is old and rusty. You were right that Winfield is old and rusty, but currently, today, Winfield still works 100% completely the same as it did all the way back then. There is absolutely no difference. It is fully functional. Now, the big caveat, like we were talking about before, is that it's not supported. It hasn't been supported, and it hasn't been touched for a long, long time. Thankfully, there's no need for it to have been. Like, it's been fine. But there are plans to change things so that it won't always be fine. I've been told specifically from the developers not to really push Winfield anymore because of that. Because in Love 12 or whatever, whenever that comes out, it's going to basically deprecate Winfield. It's not going to work anymore. What do you do when Winfield will not work anymore? Well, that's what people are saying. They're saying just use the built-in Love 2D physics, because that's what Winfield does. Winfield, if you look at the Winfield code, all it's doing is just calling the Love 2D physics modules. It's just following, like, you can look up online. Let's look up Love 2D physics tutorial. I think that there's one built in on the Love 2D site. So there's mine, but we're gonna go to this one. This one, physics tutorial. So this shows you how to create a physics world, a new world. It shows you how to create a object which has a body, shape, and fixture. And then it shows you how to, like, display some of that stuff. So this tutorial does show you how to use the physics module. Now you might notice this is very big and obnoxious. You might notice that there's a lot of stuff here. And this is why I prefer Winfield, because this is so obnoxious. You know how you create a new physics object in Winfield? You say objects.ground equals new object, and it does all of this for you. Like, you don't have to worry about a body, a shape, or a fixture. You just create a new Winfield object, and it handles all of that stuff for you. And that's why I'm a big fan of Winfield. And this physics.lua that I wrote myself, by the way, it does what Winfield does. It has this idea of a collider, physics collider, which this is something that Winfield, I think, invented. It's just, it combines the body, shape, and fixture all into one single object. And it makes it a lot more easy to digest. It's a lot more approachable. Because this is what I'm worried about, is people are going to say, I want to use physics in my game, and then I'm going to have to say, okay, well, go ahead and go to the Love 2D physics tutorial, and they're going to pull this thing up, and they're going to be like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. This is ridiculous. Even though, really, it's not that hard. You create a new world, and then you create a new object, but an object needs a body, it needs a shape, and it needs a fixture in order to operate. And then once you have that, you need to make sure you're updating the world, and then you can apply forces and stuff, set a linear velocity based on different directions. Make sure you draw it so you can see. So all this stuff here makes sense, but I think Winfield is a lot easier to understand. It's a lot quicker to set up. It doesn't have all this extra stuff. Body, shape, and fixture, in my opinion, is just a very overbearing process to get things organized, when you could just have it consolidated into one single instance of a collider. And that's what I like. Glad I stick with the engine. There's pros and cons to each. Hey, do you have any tips on tables in Lua? I'm struggling on it. Yeah, tables in Lua are tough just because they are so flexible that you can use them in so many ways. And the main advice I have is just to keep working with Lua, and you'll pick up on the little intricacies over time. But tables are so weird because everything is a table. Like this physics.lua file that I'm using, physics is a table, and all that it is it's just a table of different properties that hold other properties and other functions. Physics.init, oh my gosh. Here's one thing about tables in Lua is how, like, this colon syntax works. When it says function physics dot init, or actually you can actually say physics dot init equals function, and then like that. So like there's so many different ways that you can set this up. So this is a similar version of this, except actually when you have a colon syntax, it's the same as putting self in here. What I'm getting at is there's a lot of, they call it syntactical sugar. Syntactical sugar. A table can have a function in it, yes. A variable can have a function in it. So I could say local Kyle or Kyle's variable equals function. Return 42. Exactly. So then if I ever, then later on in the code, I can say player.x equals Kyle's variable, like this. You call it like a function, and it's going to call this function right here. It's going to return 42. So this just essentially returns 42. And this combination of how flexible everything is, how any variable can hold any data, and how tables can hold any value at any index, both iPair index and string indices, where also this dot collisions is the same thing as saying physics with the index of string collisions. This is the exact same thing as, well, oh my gosh, it keeps auto-completing. This is the same thing as this. It's like a syntax thing. So the trick to working with Lua is kind of figuring out what all this even means. I use this dot notation like self.world. This is the same exact thing as saying self world, where string is the index of self, where self is a table, self is physics, physics itself is just a table. And when I say self.collisions, it's just saying self. It's just like all of these different little tricks. Is Lua easier than Python? They're both really similar. I wouldn't say one's easier than the other. Maybe Lua's a little bit simpler just because Python has a lot of like object-oriented stuff, but maybe that makes it easier to work with Python, so it's hard to say. I do Roblox Studio Code. I think so. Low tier, thank you. I think that's fine. Roblox Studio is an awesome way to get started with it because it's a built, like a fully fleshed out engine and what do you call it? Not environment, platform. It's a full platform for releasing your games for other people to play, where one thing that people don't really talk about very much is how hard it is to distribute your games. It's really hard to get a game, like it's easy to run your game here on my computer, but how do I get this game packaged and sent off to someone else's computer so that they can run it? It's not easy. It's really, really hard because there's a lot of security concerns. If you grab software from the internet and just run it on your computer, Windows is not going to like that. It's probably just going to block it. Unless the developer that distributed that software signed the app with their personal information and validated it, and Windows is able to verify that the software comes from a verified source. Only then does it allow the software to be run. And it's the same with Steam. My game is on Steam. Steam requires me to provide a bunch of personal information. It requires me to provide like my business stuff and address and social security and tax information, all of this personal information for validation. Because if I'm distributing my software to other people's computers, there needs to be a paper trail that leads back to me in case there's any malware. And I think that there's been problems with malware on Steam in the past, or actually recently, because people can just like, I don't know how it's actually an issue, because all of these people who are posting malware have their own personal stuff attached to their account. So I don't know how they got past that part. So sketchy to give my details to Steam. Yeah, that's true. It's that's the truth though. If you want other people to, if you want to sell a product, I think that you have to forfeit some of your privacy, is what I'm learning as I'm getting more into this. Something to go along with that is apps on the App Store. If you go on, let's test this with Google Play, because I was talking about this last week, where my app Necrozone got taken down. Necrozone. I'm gonna Google search for it. Necrozone. So Necrozone is available on the iOS App Store for, I think, North America only. And then it is not in the App Store for Europe. And then I think Google Play Store is just completely gone. Now, what I want to do is kind of explain why this is the case. let's go to just a random app. So this, I don't know what this is. And I want to see what information about the developer they are showing. Because the reason why my app got taken down is because there's a lot of additional information about the developer that they want to show on these pages, and I didn't consent to it. So they didn't, the app just got taken down. What did I use to develop Necrozone? Lovedity, the same game engine that I'm using for Moonshire. So about this game, where does it show the developer information? Okay, so it has like a profile. Has their website. It actually doesn't show. I don't see any personal information because oh, here it is. App support. Here it is. Here it is. I found it. No, I didn't make. This isn't my game. No, this is. I didn't make Cookie Run Kingdom. This is. I'm pulling up. This is my game. Necrozone is my game. Cookie Run Kingdom is just like, this is just a random app I pulled up. The reason I'm looking at this app is I was trying to find this app support section, because if you go over here to app support on any app on Google Play, you will find an email address and you will find a phone number. Or I think this is a phone number. This is I think it's a Chinese phone number or Korean. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't tell what language this is. But this is. I think this is a street address too. Let me find a more. Let me see if I could find an American one or something that's in English. These are these are all. I don't think that these are English. How about apps? How about McDonald's app? App support. So it does. It does. It has a Chicago address. It has a support email. It has a phone number. So this is what I'm getting at. Is then what info do large companies put in there? This is their actual address. This is their actual address. We can look this up on Google Maps. I'm gonna do it in incognito though. So, like, this is a real place. It's in Chicago. It's downtown. And it's just their headquarters. There's, well, actually, this is very strange that there's a McDonald's on this corner, and then there's a different McDonald's on this corner. And then this is McDonald's corporate office. And so this is the thing that I'm getting at is every app on the Google Play Store now has an address. And anyone can take this address, look it up on Google Maps, and then you can see where they are. And I'm not a fan of that. So through the App Store, the public can find their headquarters. Yes. This is my concern. I'm pretty sure that today, with those changes, because my app got removed from the Google Play Store completely. Necrozone is not on here at all anymore. Necrozone. Let me actually spell it correctly. Well, there's a bunch of other people's games, but not mine. Mine's gone. It got taken down because I did not want my address to be displayed here. Same with my phone number. Same with my email address. I did not want that displayed there. So, since that's the case, I just allowed it to expire and it got taken down. And since it got taken down for me, that makes me think that a lot of other people, or that makes me think that every app on the site has the same thing going on, where Duolingo, they are in Pittsburgh. We can go ahead and check out the Duolingo headquarters. Is this creepy what we are doing? Yeah. But this is the way life is now. We can just like look up the address of all these companies because it's publicly available online. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. Can you get a business PO box that isn't your home address? Use that for the App Store. You should probably make your own LLC as an indie dev that actually makes revenue anyway. So yes, the thing is, when you have an LLC, you have to register an address. So the government also needs an address. When you register an LLC, you have to provide an address. So the government has your address. That part is true. The government does not allow you to put a PO box as your address. There are some workarounds that I've heard about. I haven't implemented them, but there are some things that you can try. But long story short, you can't just do like a PO box and register that. And the address that's displayed here is the business registered address. I can't just provide Google Play with whatever address, a PO box. I have to provide them with the business registered address that is actually registered for Challicade. And that's the address that gets displayed. And the phone number and email, I think you can just provide whatever. or maybe the phone number is associated with the business as well. Privacy on the internet is such a concern. I'm sure there's good reasons why this is being implemented. So you kind of need an office. Kind of. I'm not going to really get more into it, but yeah, kind of. And so what I was getting at is my app is still available in North America on iOS, on the App Store. But in Europe, it is taken down. And I think that the reason why all these laws are taking effect is because of European laws. Europe has been pretty progressive with tech laws and privacy laws. And I think that there's probably some very good reasons why they're doing this. It's probably a consumer protection. My suspicion is that there's a lot of crap apps on Google Play and the App Store from shady developers that are posting bad stuff. And when you have an address associated that's publicly posted, that dissuades people from posting malicious stuff because now there's a paper trail that leads back to you. And that is very good for consumers. Consumers should be happy that this information is posted because now all of the apps have a layer of credibility behind them. But at the same time, this might actually be bad for consumers because there's going to be fewer apps available now because there's this big barrier to entry. I was talking to one of my friends about this, how now that you have to have an address and a phone number publicly posted on your app, that might cause people just to not post apps anymore. It might be such a barrier that prevents people from posting it's a barrier for me. Like, my app isn't posted anymore on Google Play because of this. So this barrier has prevented my app from being distributed. And there's pros and cons of that. The pro is there is probably going to be fewer crappy apps on both of these platforms. And the bad thing is just that there's going to be fewer apps. But still, can't they just put someone else's address and phone number? Feels kind of pointless. You can't so when you register your business with the government verifies your address. So I can't tell the government a fake address because they verify it. And since this address comes directly from the government, you can't really spoof it. CG Kraz, hi, welcome in. Could you do a PO box to avoid having your exact address? Yeah, we were kind of talking about that before, where the answer is, as far as I know, no. Because when you get a PO box and you try to register a PO box as your business address with the government, they don't allow that. I've heard that. I haven't tested that. The alternative, though, is I've heard that there are other services like UPS. I don't know this. I'm just saying things that I've heard. I've heard that something like UPS offers like street address boxes where the address listed is indistinguishable from a regular address, and that would probably be legitimate. And also, it is a legitimate address because you're receiving mail there. So something like that probably would work, and that would be enough to obfuscate it. But even that, I don't really know what what's allowed. It's possible that if you try to register a UPS address with the government, that they would notice that it's actually a UPS like store, and then they would deny it. It's possible. And in that case, I don't know what I would do. I may spam this a little, but I don't want this done. Or generate my colliders from tiled, but I named it. I want to get it later in the script. Okay, so you're saying that you have objects spawned in through tiled. So I have that too. Object. So when I spawn objects, so like in this example, it's iterating through the enemy's layer. And for each object in that layer, I'm calling this spawn enemy function, and I'm passing this function object.x, object.y, object.name, and object.properties. Object.properties is all of the additional properties at the bottom in tiled. If I pull this up and go over to an object, it's so tiny. I hate this. It's so little. I'm sorry about that. But the name is up here, and then the custom properties, like all of these are the dot properties. So you can get the way I have it listed here. This is how you should do it. Pizza Med. Hi, Chalkade. How does the shaders work in Moonshire? I'm so lost right now. Shaders are a very tough thing. I understand that. So if I go over to my old version, to this one, and go over to shaders. Shaders are tough. The way I do shaders is I use GLSL for Love2D, which I think that's how you have to use Love2D shaders. And I understand it's really, really tough. The way I learned how to do shaders, let me see if I can find it, is it's a Love2D shaders. Here it is. So this is the blog that I learned the basics of writing shaders from. And notice that this post is from 2014. It's from 2014, so this is quite old. This is quite outdated. But I really do like this blog. And I'm gonna leave the URL up here at the top so anyone can see it if you need it. But it talks a lot about essentially what they are, what shaders are. It shows you how to write some really basic ones. It shows you what they actually do. And I love the example he gives because it shows these characters and he shows the colors changing. I think that this example here, right here at the bottom, is the best example of a shader. It's the simplest, best example of a shader I've seen. Because what the shader does, it's programmatically changing the color of the pixels of the square based on its position in the game world. While it's on the left side, any pixels on the left side of the screen are going to be blue. And then any pixels on the right side of the screen are going to be red. So you can see that like transition in the moment. And this is a really, really good tutorial because these fundamentals account for like 95% of all of the shader code that I write. It's a lot of... This is a similar thing. This is changing the saturation. Earlier in the stream, I was showing the saturation of something where on this side, it's more saturated, and on this side, it's less saturated. You know, it's kind of flipped from what it was in like the paint picker, but you can see how his color changes to less saturated on the right and more saturated on the left. So it's not only you need to be willing to share your address and phone, you actually need to register a business. That's a good question, actually. I don't know. That's a really good question, because I have to imagine on the Google Play Store and iOS Store, you don't need a business, but maybe you do. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that, because I would recommend anyone who posts and distributes software in any capacity, register a business, because it's just a step that adds some abstraction between your personal life and the customer. This is how businesses operate, where if I am running a business where I'm selling a product to consumers and my product has some kind of malfunction. Let's say that my product malfunctions and it causes damages. The scary part with businesses is that damages can get pretty high. If you're like distributing software, like let's say I distributed a game and that game like broke someone's computer and it caused like the shutdown of a business for a few days. That could be very expensive. And that business that received those damages, they might want to like sue you for it. And if they sue you as a person, well, they'll be able to like take your house and take your 401k and take all these personal assets. But if you have a business, your business is the start and end point of that software. Even though you're the one that runs the business has its own funds, its own assets. It's the one that's in charge of distributing the software. So it's a layer of abstraction that protects you, the individual, from like business transactions and business operations. That's my understanding of it. But here's the thing: is I'm not a business person. I have this current Challicade entity going on, but it is not something I'm an expert at all. I am not a trained business person. I don't have a business degree. I've never run a business besides this like little indie project. And also, my business is not profitable. I lose money every month. So I'm not really in a position where I can like give people business advice. It is just that I'm getting started and I'm getting better every year. Like I say that's not profitable, but it will be profitable eventually. I'll get there. I put myself in a very good position where I can handle that. I can take the hit for a little bit until I get to the point where, you know, it does start making money. Either is available, $99 per year for individual or Apple software dev. Yeah, I pay for both of them, or I pay for the $99 per year for Apple. Note that shaders are useful for 2D games, but not needed for 99% of stuff. Most of it can be done with textures, blends. You're right, but there are some examples where it's really helpful. Because, sure, like let's say you had 2 levels in your game. Let's say I had a level in my game, one where it's the daytime. It looks like this. I'm outside and it's the daytime. But then let's say I wanted to make a second level where it's the nighttime. It's the nighttime out here. That would require me to make completely different sprites for everything. I'd have to make a nighttime. I would have to change the colors of all of these sprites to have nighttime colors. But instead, you could use a shader to recolor everything to have a darker tone, to have less saturation, to have like deeper blues and deeper purples, and that will give it a cool night shade effect. And you can do that all programmatically. You would not need to create new sprite sheets to do all that stuff. 2D inverse kinematics, but can't solve one problem. How to convert a cos to sine angle. How to convert a cosine to sine angle. 2D inverse kinematics, but I can't solve one problem. How to convert a cos to sine angle. So, you are doing it the mathematical way. You're saying that you're using the a cosine. I think I actually do use that as well somewhere in here. A cos. Oh, sorry, I'm not. Dang it. I really thought that I was. Maybe I'm using it in the prefactor version. ACOS. There you go. I think that this is what you're looking for. Is this, let me know if this is what you're looking for, because what you're describing is really complex, where you have the ACOS and then the result is not quite accurate to, like, it doesn't have the right directionality to it. And I think that this version does. ATAN2 function will sort that. Oh yeah, that's what I use. ATAN2. I use ATAN2 in lots of places. Yeah, that's what you're looking for. Thank you for pointing that out, Revi. Thank you for that. If you want a tone map, that's true, but if you were fine with a darker tint, you could also draw a dark blue transparent rect. So you're saying an overlay. So the thing about an overlay is that it is a single color transitionary process. When you use shaders, you can do a lot more. You can have a lot more customization with the color blending than you can do by just having a big Like, let's say I had a 2000 by 2000, because this is how I do the darkness in my game. When I have a dark area with like actual pitch blackness, I have this big black overlay that looks like this, and then you can just like cut out a circle in the middle. And then like here's my player. My player is right here in the middle, and you can see him because the overlay is this big black square that overlays everything, and then the shaders hole punch a hole in the middle. Or actually, you could just have this as a vignette image. You don't even need shaders. You could just have this image as as like an image that overlays everything with the hole punch pre-built. But if you wanted this hole punch to like change size or have any sort of like fadedness to it, I guess you could do fadedness in the image itself too. Oh, but what I was going to say is that even if you use a overlay for color, like you were saying, like a filter, like a blue filter, and actually not that, we're going to make it a transparent blue filter. And actually to make it even more clear, I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to draw my character. My character is going to be right here. There he is. And we're going to give him a cute little face. Wonderful. And then up here, this is going to be our overlay filter. Because this is what the suggestion was, is to avoid needing to use shaders, you can use filters to change the colors. And that's true. So if I color this, that's pretty strong, but the idea is if I want to make a shade of blue, or actually, let's make this even better. I'm going to add another layer below the player, and it's going to have the green grass. Okay, so we have the green grass, and we have the red player. And the idea is if we wanted to make it more nighttime colors, we can add a blue overlay filter, like using this color, like that, and then we're gonna make it transparent, and then do this. So now, instead of it being a green grass, it's now like green blue. And instead of the player being red, it's like red blue. But as you can see, like the multiplication of having an overlay, it makes everything brighter. Even if I made this a darker shade, I think that I guess that kind of works, but it kind of desaturates it whenever you do that. That kind of works. So it depends, but when you're using when you're using like code, like a shader code to handle the shading process, you have a lot more control over the stuff. Am I originally a programmer or an artist? I am a programmer. I have a computer science degree. I worked as a software developer at Microsoft, and now I do this. But I've been doing art for a while. I wouldn't say art is my strong point, though. Clearly, look at that. I'm not really winning any awards with that. But I'd also say I could probably do better than this. How can I make a cat with a suit in 20 by 20 canvas? I don't know. That sounds hard. That is definitely the hard part about pixel art, is that it's a challenge in constraints. You only have 20 by 20 pixels, so you have to like really make use of that space. And I, actually, on top of that, I would encourage you to take it a step further and make it even less, because I love having a main character that is almost like a square shape. It is still a rectangle. He's still taller than he is wide, but he's so short that it makes a lot of the like calculations and movements a lot clearer and easier. It's the same with like Mario. Mario is almost like a circle shape when he's little, and that makes him a lot easier to like comprehend in terms of like collisions and things like that. If Mario was really tall, like Waluigi, imagine if you were playing as Waluigi. He's so tall that it kind of just doesn't really work as well as a short, round character. I think Kirby as a character is perfect just because of that. The range of ACOS is from 0 to pi, but I need negative pi to pi. Well, you could just multiply it by a negative if you need to get the inverse. So I think that you would just need to calculate if it's negative, then multiply the result by -1. I can't get any player idea better than the cat. That's fine. this is the thing, is don't go into it with an idea in your head. Just start drawing stuff. Because when I made my main character, I didn't know for sure what was going to look good. In fact, here, I think I even have some old progress pixel art from a long time ago. That'd be fun to look at. No, that's just a regular one. This is kind of a decent example. This is more of an example of me trying to figure out animations, but it is still trying to figure out like the shapes and the constraints. So this here is kind of what I started with, and I was making adjustments to try and find a better shape and size for this player. Because if you look at these sprites here, these are not the final version. The final version looks a lot different. And I'll go through all these frames because it's going to show you my step-by-step process. You can see like I'm moving the head around to fit it in a little bit. I'm moving it down, actually. I made the player shorter. I made the face bigger. Yeah, because you can see over here, the face is kind of like constrained in this space here. And I made it bigger, just more wide open. And it's just moving things around. Already, between this frame and this frame, it already looks a lot cleaner. And that just came from iterating on the same sprites over time. I'm sorry I missed the McDonald's chat. Oh, I'm sorry, bud. But the thing is, I'm gonna get McDonald's after this. Do I still have it up? Oh no, I looked up the address for McDonald's. We actually pulled up McDonald's home base. You said stand-ups. That gave me PTSD when I had to go to stand-ups. Oof. Make more movement for the animation. So this is what I'm still not done going through all these. So then we're here, and we'll keep going. Yeah, again, it looks like here there's a lot of black. So I saw all these black thick portions, and it looks like I started removing those. Yeah, so I changed it from really black to thinner outlines. That's nice. Any good player idea? Mythical Rock, my advice is just to start drawing stuff. This is what I'm showing you, is that I don't know what's good. If we gave you a player idea, that wouldn't really be worth anything. The only thing that's going to be good is if you draw something. Drink water. Thank you. Thank you, Allfather. But it is hard, I know. But if I told you, draw a person with red hair and a cape, that's not going to make it any easier. If I told you to draw a penguin, it's not going to be any easier. The only thing that's going to make it easier is if you do what I'm showing you here, where you draw some ugly versions of what you are thinking about, and then iterate on it. You move stuff around to get to the point where it starts to look kind of good. And then you'll kind of start to get some new ideas for what will work and what won't work. But sitting here in chat and repeatedly asking for player ideas, I don't think you're going to get anywhere with that. Like, that's not going to fix anything. I think that you should just start drawing something, and if something starts to look good, then do go in that direction. But especially when you're starting out, you're going to draw a lot of sprites that don't look good. Or you can start with like some open source sprites. Start with an asset pack and find some characters from that, and kind of make edits until you find your own style. I think that that's perfectly fine as well. But thinking about art, you are not going to get better at art. Thinking about character ideas is not going to get you any closer to a better character idea. Drawing characters, like throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, just like going into a canvas and picking out a color and going like, okay, I'm going to start with the head. It's going to look like this. And, you know, actually I'm going to make the head less tall, so we're going to do something like that. We're going to give him a kind of a weird looking helmet that looks like this. Okay, and then maybe his face can be down here. It's gonna be like a dark creepy face, like a faded face. We'll give him a robe. I really do like robes. I think robes are neat. I think I'll do it like that. We'll do that. We'll add more down here. We'll give him some little feet. And there is my first draft of the character. What do we think? I think he looks pretty cool. So, my advice is to draw a bunch of characters, and you'll find one that looks okay. I would give this character like a 3 out of 10. It's kind of not good. But if I were to take this character and let's iterate on him. This is how I do characters, by the way, is I start with 1, and it always just evolves from that point. Because I don't know what looks good. The only way that you'll figure out what looks good is if you try a bunch of stuff, and then it gets easier. It's looking better. Okay, I'd say that's slightly better than the other one. I think I liked it better when this cape was out farther, though. That's kind of cool. Maybe it can be even farther down. Yeah, now it's more like a trench coat. I think I'm gonna go with that. That's kind of tough because I've run out of pixels. Kind of looks NES-like, yeah. Whenever things are pre-shaded, it always looks NES-like. That's alright. When I took that off, maybe I can move his head, make his head bigger. I'm sorry I keep stuttering, by the way. I kind of like that. Okay. This shape is starting to look a little bit better. Did I add the snowman? No, I didn't add that yet. I saved it though. I still have it. Honestly, I kind of like how this looks, but it's just so flat. There's no color to it yet. So maybe I can steal from these colors. Well, now it's just looking too much like the player. Let's give him a more unique look. Let's make it into more of a. This reminds me of like a rain jacket, and he's gonna have white eyes. He looks like a Silksong character. He looks like one of the snail shamans. Then let's go. They played wheelchair wizards. I've never heard of that. Sounds funny. Or maybe I can make it more like a rain jacket. Yeah, like that, where it has like little buttons. That's cute. And then let's get a brighter color. Who's this gonna be? I don't know. I'm just drawing something to practice. Really, the only thing I wanted to do is I just wanted to show that viewer how I design characters. Is that it's just moving pixels around until you find something that looks kind of okay. And really, parts of this look okay, but it's not quite right. Maybe it would look better if I just like make it more. Maybe I could. I'm sorry I'm not looking at chat. I've been busy with this. Sorry about that. Bro's locked. I a bad habit of mine sometimes. I feel like I'm starting to make it a little bit worse. Also, I want to try and make them shorter, because I was talking earlier how I really like round characters. Do I use animated sprites to animate? Or animation players to animate? I'm not sure what you mean, but I use a combination of sprite sheets, and some things are programmatically animated. So like, if you look at these trees here, I'm working on animating these trees a little bit better, but this is a programmatic animation where it's just like moving side by side. Same with the grass, if you see the grass on the ground. But then you compare that to these banners. These banners are using a sprite sheet animation. And all the players' animations, all of this is a sprite sheet as well. But then, like, striking the spear out, that's programmatic. This is just moving the spear per frame. So it's a combination of lots of different things. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of Little Nightmares. Maybe we can move this up. Okay, so he's like cowering inside of his. Oh, let's make it into a hood. Yeah, then it can be like a full-on jacket. How can I make it look like a jacket, or how can I make it look like a hood? This does kind of look like a hood. If I make it pointier, it definitely will. How can I make this look like a hood? That kind of looks like a hood. You know, I think that I've seen hoods have like it drips down like this. Although that just makes it that makes her look mad. She's just angry now. Can you draw a steampunk weapon? That sounds cool. Add shadow. I will. I add shadow at the end. The question is, how do I get... Oh, this is going to be really hard. I don't know how I'm going to get this side looking right. Because I need to have an outline on the outside. I guess that looks okay. No, that kind of made it worse. I think this is kind of cool. Let's move. It's getting a little bit janky. Here, before I make those changes, let's move this over. One thing that inspires me to work differently is you tend to do everything completely. I tend to rush things to get things moving. I think it's better to do, to rush things. I think it's a really good idea to, like I was telling someone earlier, make a placeholder character. Like that person who was asking about a main character, I was saying just make a square. Like this. This is your main character. This is your main character, and we'll give him a smiley face. See? There you go. There. He looks like Super Meat Boy. See? Oh man, I'm such a good artist. Oh, and also last time someone was talking about outlines, Sprite has the outline button, so you can just do that. It's pretty easy. Let's go ahead. Let's shade him. No, I don't think he needs that much. And then let's give him some shadow. Yay, Super Meat Boy. Everyone's favorite meat man. Okay, back to this. I'm gonna try and make... I do like his eyes wide more. But he looks like he's looking down, so I'm gonna try and move his head. I think that size works better, but now the face is messed up. It has Super Meat Boy from Temu, yeah, it does. Oh, can I just move this down like this? See, now I'm getting into like minimalist. I'm trying to make them really small because I like tiny characters. I'm gonna try and make like a super chibi character because I think that would be better. That might be as small as I can make it. He has no feet. That's the other hard thing. Like, I had this, but that doesn't look very good. He has stick legs. I think that his body won't really work that well when he's this small. I think I had to change things around again. Well, now he's a Cyclops. I think that I have maybe gone too far. I think I ruined him. I think I turned him into a little thing. Well, the hood version is okay, but I think that these both would need another few hours before they look any good. But long story short, this is how I design my characters. Is I just like put something on paper and then it kind of starts to evolve into something different. Because like going into this, I started off, I pictured in my head like one of the Buckingham Palace hats that the guards wear. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give him a Buckingham Palace hat, and then it kind of changed into like a cloak with rain jacket sort of thing. But even still, like this doesn't look quite right. I definitely would need to put more time. It looks like a ghost now. Give it more time, it could work. And that's the thing, is that any sprite that I work on looks good the more time, or looks better the more time I spend on it. And I think that's probably true with most people's artwork, is the more time that you spend, the better it's going to look. And really the same is true with this example that I'm giving here, where I was showing like this is my first attempt, and like the player kind of looks okay, but his face looks like he was stung by a bee and his face is puffed up. But each one of these movements, even though it's small, it takes a long time to do each one of these movements, by the way. Like, even though it takes me only a few seconds to go through all of these right now, each one of those took, I don't know, 30 minutes. And there's 33 of these, so how much time did this whole thing take? Well, I guess probably these didn't take 30 minutes each. Like, it's just me moving some pixels around. But yeah, now we can see I start forming the newer shape where the hood's a little bit more trimmed. Yeah, the head's pulled back, because before he was like leaning forward. And this is closer to the final design. Yeah. But that's how I design players. It is a process, that is for sure. It is definitely a process. But I like it. And normally I'm happy with the final products I'm able to get to, but it is so time consuming. Like the example that we were going through, wherever that was here, this is an example of like, I don't know, how long do we spend on this? 10 minutes? I normally spend like 10 hours on player animation, more than that. Like I probably spent 10 hours on the first draft to get to this one point, and then another 10 hours to get through all these. It is a lot of work making these. But another thing that we could work on is the shadows, because in this like really rough version, you can see that some of these objects have messed up shadows, especially like this pillar and the kiln, even the barrel. And that's because I was trying for a little bit to go with really generic shadows. The way my shadows work in my game. If I go to sprites, shadows, there are different categories, like the box or the round shadows. These shadows look like this. Okay, so it's just a big round shadow. It's the same shadow that I'm using for like right here. And the idea is there's all these generic shadows, and hopefully every object would be able to use one of these generic shadows. And I'm finding it's not working out very well. It's not working out very well because there's so many unique shapes. Like, I couldn't find a shadow that fit this kiln properly. The sprite I used is close, right? It looks close, but it's not quite right. And obviously, like, this pillar one is way off. So I think that I'm going to have some custom ones, which I have over here, like the chest, the redwood, and the well. But I think I'm going to make one for the barrel, because even this barrel one, it's not quite right. It looks a little bit off. The old player sprite looks like they're running. Yeah, I think that's kind of the vibe I got from it too, is that it looked too much like a frantic motion. I already closed it, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But right now, I think I'm going to try making some of the custom shadow sprites, because that would be a good mundane thing to work on right now. And the way that's going to work is I'm going to have that pulled up there, and then I'm going to have the props pulled up over here, because like I have the pillar. I need to open this up, put the pillar here, and then the shadow sprite for this pillar is going to just be this bottom section. I'm going to make it match, so let's make a new sprite. I'm going to take this section right here. And I'm going to go here. And I'm going to make all this black. I think I just do this. Brightness, there we go. So now it's black. I'm going to make it match a little bit better. Well, actually, I think that's all I needed to do. I might as well fill this in, even though this part goes behind the pillar. And then, actually, I normally change this to white. I use white shadows, because then I can color it in later. Trim it. I'm going to save this. Under sprites, shadows, I'm going to call this pillar. So, now that I have that in place, let's see what the process looks like to applying that to that prop. Prop. And pillar. Okay, so here it says I have the shadow ID is round XL. And since now I'm using the custom sprite called pillar, I can just change this to be pillar, I think. And I think it should work. It did. It did work. It looks a little bit weird, though. Like, the scale is off. Well, I mean, there's a few things that's off. Obviously, the positioning is weird, because it's too far down. It doesn't line up properly. But also, it's not wide enough. I think the pixelation looks a little bit scaled. Shadow. Oh, you know what? I forgot to make it bigger. I need to make this one sprite bigger. So I'm gonna add an outline. 1 pixel bigger is what I should have said. Outline like that. There we go. That should fix that part, but then also I need to make the off Y, the shadow Y, not -2, probably -3, maybe? Let's see. Better. So now the shadow is spilling over to the sides, but I need to make it, instead of -2, it needs to be like negative, I don't know, 8. Let's see. Really, really close. In fact, I think that I'm only... Am I 1 pixel off? Let me zoom in real quick so I can see it. It looks like I'm half a pixel off. So we need to move it down half a pixel. That's pretty easy. So instead of -8, it's -7.5. And then this should be perfect. I think it would look better if the shadow was bigger. So I think I'm gonna make it even bigger. We're gonna make it 20 by 19, and then again we're gonna do edit, or whoops, FX outline, like that. And we're gonna try it one more time. I think this will look the best out of all of them. Okay, that does look good. It looks good. It's a little too perfect, though. Like, it doesn't feel quite right. Almost like I need to make it narrower. Like, I need to shrink it a little bit. Maybe that'll help? I don't know if that'll help. Let me know if there's any problems with the stream or the chat, because I haven't seen any new chats for a second. But I am also in the zone, as one gets. 82128. Well, that's something. You know, that actually looks worse. I think it looked better when it was more form-fitting. No chat is fine. Good. I'm being really nitpicky right now, because really, this looks fine. The diagonals look thinner. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Another pixel. Let's try that. Another pixel on the diagonal line. That's a really, really good suggestion. So, not just that. I think that these two. I think you're right. Is that I was... Yeah. 82128. I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, you fixed it! Yay! Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. That was the problem. I was like, something looks off about it. But yeah, that is what it is. That diagonals in general just take up less space, so filling it in with extra pixels does help. And that definitely was the problem here. So I think that shadow looks perfect. And I'm gonna do the same process for the barrel. So we got the barrel right there. Barrel right there. And I'm gonna take this. And let's make it something bigger. I'm gonna take this. Actually, I'm going to edit it. FX. No, adjustments. Highest contrast. There we go. Or can I do... No. And then we're going to make it white. And then we're going to take this and we're going to flip it like that. And that should be the barrel. I think it needs to go down one more. Actually, I think I need to make it one bigger, right? And then maybe I could do the... Well, let's see how this works first, and I might do the corner thing that Joe said earlier. Sprite trim. Save, and this is barrel. And same here, I can change barrel from squirrel to barrel. How does this look? Again, it is very perfect. I think I'm going to implement Joe's suggestion from before where I make the diagonals more filled in, because that worked out really nicely like last time. I wish it was a little bit quicker for me to start the game back up and show it, because it takes always a hot sec. Okay, I think this looks pretty good. I like that. That looks good. Okay. I think that this looks fine. I think that this looks fine. What else needed to change? Oh, the kiln. The kiln needs to change. So let's fix the kiln. That would be a good one. Nice chair, thank you. You're talking about mine. I love my chair. It's a full-on recliner. It's really comfy. Sometimes it's a little bit too comfy, if I'm being honest. Let's take this section once more. Something like that. We're gonna go to a new sprite. Something like 36 by 26, doesn't matter. We're going to make it... Whoa, no, not that. Full contrast, lowest brightness, and then sure, we can click this invert button. That's the same thing as turning it white. When encoding in Love2D, do I use the terminal to debug? If so, is it set up to work in VS Code? When I run my game, it pops up the config window. And you do this in your conf.lua, conf.lua. If you put a conf.lua next to your main.lua, and then you put in here a console true, when you start the game, it'll open up a console window with the game, assuming that you're on Windows. If you're on Mac, you have to do it a little bit differently. So I do use this output to help with debugging. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else to show related to that. If you wanted to run it through VS Code, you would need to... I think I can show that. I've never tried, but I think I can show that. If you do go to terminal, new terminal, I think you can just say .love. No, that just opened up love.js. That's not what I wanted. You would have to run the game through Love2D via the terminal. So you can run Love games through any terminal, through PowerShell or through CMD or through like the terminal on Mac. You can run Love commands and run it that way. So if you wanted to run it through VS Code, you would run it through this terminal. But the additional way to run it is by using the extension. So I have this extension called Love2D Support. And if you have this installed, then you can run your Love2D games by pressing Alt-L. And that's how I run all my games, is by pressing Alt-L, and it runs it through. It sends this project from VS Code to the Love application, and I'm able to run it that way. So hopefully that answered that question. I kind of went on a few different tangents there. But this is ready. I'm going to make it bigger because I always add... Whoop, not that. FX outline, like that. And then I am going to fill in the diagonals. That was a really good suggestion. I'm glad that Joe said that. I don't think I think this is probably too tall, but let's see how it looks at least. You need to go to sprite, trim. I'm not found. Hi, I'm glad you could be here. Also, alongside Love2D support, are there any other VS Code plugins that I find useful? Not specifically. So I have a lot of VS Code plugins now, but a lot of it is related to Azure and Copilot. So I have a lot of Azure AI, Azure App Service, Container Apps, Cosmos DB. I have so much Azure stuff. So much Azure stuff. And then there's some GitHub action. Oh, this is for like auto-running GitHub specific stuff. Copilot, CSV. Yeah, so really, it's just Love2D support. I think that's the only one I really use. All this other stuff is for extra stuff that's kind of related, but not really. So let's get this saved. This is the kiln.png. news is right now it's set to round XL, but we're going to set this to kiln. And that should be good to go. Okay. So the offset is wrong. Let's go ahead and fix that. It probably needs to be offset up by like -3. -8, let's try. Might need to be even more than that. Yep, probably another 2. Okay, that looks better. I think that I need to bring it down by half a pixel. Yeah, it needs to be offset down by half a pixel, and then that should be good. So this is 9.5. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. Looks really good. I love it. Let me move it down, because actually I can't see part of it. Part of the shadow is on the wall. I think I need to move it. I think I need to change a little bit. So the kiln is right here. Let's move it down here and save. That looks just fine and dandy. Maybe I can make the sprite 1 less, like it's 1 too tall. I can do that, but we're definitely nitpicking at this point. Oh, I screwed something up. I need to move it down by another half pixel. There's that. That looks as good as it's gonna get. That looks really nice. Whoa, I broke the game. It's okay. Cammy, hey, good morning. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. I'm just working on some pixel art and some shadows. But really, actually, I think it's in a pretty good spot now that I added all of those, because I added the barrel, the kiln, and the, what was it? Pillar. The other thing I want to do while I was at this is the pillar has a really bad width and height. It needs to be much smaller. Like, it needs to be much smaller, like 16, maybe 16 by 16 is okay. And then debug. I was going to show this too, is that you can show the colliders in my rewrite. It looks like this. They're going to be very green. Nice. The new collision looks pretty good. I might make it even shorter, though. The tree animation is so smooth. Thank you. Appreciate that. There's still more I want to do with it, but yeah, it's a lot. I think it's better than it was before. I want to center the rotation around the center a little bit more, because right now it's centered around the base, and I think it'd look better if it was rotating around the center. But overall, this direction for the tree animation is a lot better. I like it. Thank you for saying that. I'm going to make this physics collider smaller, because it doesn't need to be that big. Pillar can be 14 by 12. And hopefully that's okay. I think that that's okay. Sorry, I should have pulled this over. So the pillar is this size. You can walk behind it. The kiln size is perfect. You know, what I want to start doing is I have the option to put corners. Like, do you see how the player has a rounded edge, like a rounded corner? I want to do that for all of these. I can't believe I haven't done that yet. So how do I define that? Do I have corners defined? Corner. I don't. I need to actually implement this. This is a perfect thing to implement. So physics, collider args, template prop. Physics. So there, I have this thing called templates, and this is what the arguments for a collider looks like. Now, I think I have the option to put corner as an option here. I thought. What did I call? It's not called corner. It's called something else. Bevel. I called it bevel. Okay, so bevel is somewhere here. There we go. So I can set bevel to something, and I think I... Here, I'll start with the pillar, and I'll set bevel equals 4, but I think I need to do something else in this file for that to work. So physics. Yeah, I need to say if prop.bevel, then collider args. Yeah, there we go. So I think now the collider args that are passed into the physics collider for the pillar will have the bevel. Nice. It worked. It worked. I might change it from 4 to 3 because that looks a little bit too much. And also, I can make it taller too. So let's change bevel to 3, and I'm going to make it taller, like 14. Wow, that looks so nice. Oh, so good. So that's just nice because before it was like a floating invisible corner, but now it actually matches. So that's really good. It's evening in Belgium. Cool. I know that we have a few Belgians in chat. I know Pippa's from Belgium. I think so. Let's do the same thing for the kiln real quick. Bevel equals probably 3 for this as well. Maybe 2. Let's see how that looks. No, it can be more than 2. Let's do 3. That'll be good. And then for the barrel, that's also gonna have a bevel. A very small one, like 2. Okay, that's close enough. I could make it wider. I'll make the kiln wider. I don't know if I even need to. What is a bevel? Bevel is what I call this corner. So, like, take a look at this box. This box is just a square or a rectangle. It has no bevel. But you compare this box to the pillar or the player, where it's an octagon. It has the corner pushed inwards, like a diagonal. And it just makes the collider more round. It's still pretty simple. It's still a simple sprite, a simple shape, but it's a lot easier to comprehend. Okay, the barrel is not enough. I'm gonna make the barrel 3. The barrel's gonna be 3, and the kiln is going to be wider, like 30, and then the bevel will be 4. Or actually, let's make the width. Let's make it just 29 because it was already really close. I just started working on my second game after publishing my first last year on Steam. Awesome! I've been thinking of starting streaming once a week, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Any advice? Yeah, that's awesome that you're gonna start giving it a shot. But my advice is just to start it and see what feels good. Because when I started streaming, you can go back to my early streams. I was not confident and I stuttered a lot and I didn't know what I was doing either. I had some things planned, but my advice is have some things planned that are really easy and mundane. Because there's lots of tasks that we have to do as developers that are basic and simple and boring, but those tasks are really good for stream because you're going to be preoccupied with a few other things. I can't really do complex coding on stream because it takes a lot of thought and focus, and I notice that whenever I try to do that, I just ignore the chat, and it's not very fun to watch. It's fun to see the final result, but yeah, it takes a lot of practice. So my advice is just to get started and practice with it, but no pressure. Get on a schedule, but if you can't stick to the schedule, as long as you're doing it consistently, is all I'm getting at. I'm mostly focused on 3D game dev, but recently I've been drawn to 2D. Any tips on pixel art? I always struggle with character creation. Yeah, we were talking about character creation earlier in the stream. It is tough because the way I handle character creation or any sort of like development on sprites, it's very, very iterative. And I'll go ahead and pull up that sprite sheet from before. This was in projects, MOONSHIRE prefactor, and this was in sprites player, and it was old, and it was new player, I think. Yeah, so I was showing this earlier in stream where the way I do pixel art is I get something drawn, and if it's ugly, I'm going to iterate on it. I shift things around. It's a lot of experimentation because it's hard to know in your head what is going to look good with pixel art until you have something down. And then once you do, it's just a matter of like moving and shifting and reshaping. Like you'll see I changed the head shape a little bit to be more thin and slender. And I just thought that it looked better. I can't really explain it any more than that. So just get started with it. Try to make sprites, and they're going to be ugly because you're just getting started with it. But as you do it a lot, you'll figure out like what looks good, what shapes and sizes. Like there are a lot of tricks like with having diagonals and outlines and stuff like that. But you can't really learn those things from a video or from a blog or anything like that. You kind of just have to do it. So, did I finish checking all these things? Yeah, the barrel is better. I think I can make it even more. Kiln... Oh, did I not? Maybe I didn't even restart. I don't even know if I restarted. I think this is pretty good. Yeah, it's really nice when the barrel has a more rounded hitbox. And I know it's not perfect. It's not a perfect circle, but nothing needs to be a perfect circle. Like I found that octagons, like that's perfect. For my game, I love octagons. Everything's an octagon. It's a little bit extra, honestly, that everything's an octagon, but rectangles and octagons get the job done, and they're really simple. But yeah, now that I'm doing this, maybe I can add some roundedness to these poles. Probably not. It's not really necessary. Don't spend too much money on a camera when you're first starting out. Yeah, definitely. In fact, you can stream with your cell phone. Some of my earliest streams, I used my phone as a camera because you can connect your phone through USB to your computer, and you can use it as a regular camera. It's not convenient, and it's not like the best quality that you can get, but it's probably better than any other camera that you could feasibly get. Because your cell phone camera is pretty good. Like, let's be real. They're expensive. Do you think you have to have camera, or could you stream with no cam? You could stream with no cam. Lots of people stream with no cam. You could also do like a VTuber or a PNG tuber. A lot of people have cam, but then they put the camera on like something mundane or simple. There's lots of creative ways to deal with that. You don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. I think that in general, streams that have a person on camera tend to do a little bit better, but I don't think it's necessary at all. Especially, you'll probably be able to focus better if you don't have a camera on you. It's a lot less setup, and you can focus more on just like whatever else is going on. Because right now, I do have to pay some amount of attention to what I look like and like my posture, and I keep looking over at my camera to make sure that it's like set up properly. And when you don't have that set up, it's one less thing to worry about. And when you're working on game development on stream, that's already a lot of stuff to worry about. #1 Twitch streamer for a while was a VTuber. I believe it. I believe it. Because really, look, like watching a stream and there's a VTuber, something about that is a little bit more compelling than watching a stream and there's just like no one. Also, VTubers can be like cool and interesting, and you have a lot of personality involved with that. So I think there's a lot to do with that. A lot of cool stuff. But I don't really consider myself a good streamer yet. I feel like I'm still getting the hang of it, especially with recording and getting the setup proper and being entertaining. I think I do a good job of always talking, but in terms of talking about interesting stuff, I think I need to do better at that. Why did I drop my bird game? Just because as I was playing it, I felt like it still needed too much work before it could be anything good. And I was really eager to get into the level design process of that game, but when the game itself had problems, like I felt like the bird game, it was too hard to bounce off of enemies, it was too hard to aim, it felt clunky, and I didn't have a really solid direction for it. It was just kind of like a very surface level idea. And since it wasn't quite ready yet, I don't think that I should be spending time fleshing out a project that isn't fundamentally ready. And that's why I jumped to a different project. I jumped to working on like the Zelda-like stuff. And I think that it's a really good idea for most people to try ideas and go with the ones that work. if you try to plan out your projects like from start to finish, I don't think those projects are going to pan out. But if you have an idea and you try it, and then that idea breeds new ideas, that's what I think is going to lead to a really good game. Can I fight AI again? Should we end stream with an AI fight? I don't really know what I should ask it to do. What could I have it do? I had it do something yesterday. Please implement this concept of OY factor where the OY will be calculated to be, for example, 0.9. Oh, I remember doing this. I also had to implement margin. I don't know if I have anything specific I could ask it to do. Actually, first let me check this in because I made some shadow adjustments. Custom. What are you gonna do after Moonshire is released? I don't even know. Like that is a long ways away from being here, and it's hard to really say. The AI is saved, he has nothing to do. Yep. AI is spared today. Can you give tips for releasing games on Steam? Yeah. First, the thing about Steam and all these platforms is it requires personal information. I had to provide my business information, tax IDs, social security stuff, and if I didn't have that available, that would have made it a lot harder. Then once you have the account actually set up, you have to pay the fee too, and once you're approved. Getting the game on Steam is a matter of having the executable ready. So whenever I release on Steam, I'll go ahead and show it, I have to package the game into a distributable format. Distributable. It's a hard word to say. But here is every release of Moonshire. Every folder is a different release, and you can see that each folder has a different like ID attached to it. And if I go into any particular one of these, like the most recent one, it is. I guess I don't need these. I should just delete these. Those don't need to be in there. I don't need the README either. So this is what the packaged version of Moonshire looks like. When you guys download the game on Steam and run it on your computer, if you go into like the project files, this is what is on your computer, is this. So the process is taking all of my game code, which this is what the game code looks like, package it into an exe format, and then include all of these DLLs. These are like package supporting files. You include all these together, and then Steam has this kind of complex process of uploading this securely to Steam. And it is complex because it needs to be secure. All of this stuff gets validated and verified to make sure that no malware gets put into any of this stuff. How big is the game? I think it's like 100 megabytes. Maybe not. Actually, I don't even think it's quite that big yet. How to make those pedals? All the pedals are just sprites. It's one individual small sprite, and it's spawning a whole bunch of them all over the place. And then they just follow a path. You just follow a path over time, and that's how the pedals are working. I found the Steam learning curve very steep. Took a while to get my bearings with game packages and using the upload tool and everything. Yes, it is hard. I think that the process of uploading to Steam is not as simple as it could be, and it is complex, and understanding like the content pipeline, not the content, that's not what they call it. The there's just some hard stuff to do with it. When will I update the Steam demo? As soon as I have something to share. But all of the updates I've been making have just been code changes, and it hasn't really been something I can release yet. And I've just been redoing stuff over and over and over all the time. It's just been repeatedly over and over. So as soon as I reach the point where the rewritten version feels more complete, I will definitely be doing that. How do you package the exe? There is a pretty standard process. Oh, look, we still have him up. If you look up Love 2D Game Distribution. Love 2D Game Distribution. This page talks about the process. But essentially, you just fuse the .love with the exe, the Love exe, and it produces a new executable that has both of them. Can't believe it's been 3 years since the first public prototype. Man, I know, it's been a process. It is, but the cool part is, it is a very different game than it was all the way back then. It's come a long way, but it still has a long ways to go because I'm still making a lot of adjustments, a lot of changes. But I'm very excited for the future of this game and for the future of this channel. I have a lot of stuff that I'm working on, and it's going to be great. But on that note, I think I'm going to call it quits for the stream for the day because it's been 2 hours and I'm ready to go get myself some lunch. Do I use a personal game engine? I use Love2D, which is the open source game engine. But I'm ready to call it quits. Thank you all so much for being here for the stream today, and I will be back next week for yet another Moonshire Monday. Thank you all so much, everyone. Turtle, Rescue Squad Culp, Tijlipa, Wolf, Steward, LMNOP, Lee Scratcher, Anonymy, Mythical Rock. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.